What are we? Well, we're a circulating collection of physical books, over 3,000 picture books, trade books published since 2002, featuring human characters of color, BIPOC characters. And that's a circulating collection. Anyone can check those books out through interlibrary loan from anywhere in the world. We're also a search tool, and I'll show you that in a moment. And we also focus on critical data. And so when I think about multicultural picture books, when I came to this work, I was really interested in thinking about who was represented and who wasn't represented, looking for gaps. And so, you know, we do on our website share data from our book coding that talks about who is represented and who is not. And so, for instance, you can see MENA characters, Middle Eastern, North African, and Arab characters are represent a very small portion of BIPOC books. And so these numbers are thinking about books featuring Black and Indigenous people and people of color exclusively. And within that band, only 3% feature MENA characters, right? And so we think about who is represented, and we want to encourage and provide data that can be used as a point of advocacy and also offer some direction in ways in which this literature can grow. So getting the numbers of who is represented up is really important, but to me, that's only part of it. When I got into this work, I noticed that even within one group of characters, there's often a limited story being told. And so, for instance, if I click on this radio button for Asian Pacific Islander and Asian American peoples, I can take a look at the live data that we share all of the time. Every time we add a book, these numbers have the potential to shift. We can see that the majority, 45% of the books, are what we call beautiful life books, which are stories where culture is central to the story. So they explicitly focus on the diverse expressions of Asian American people, Asian descended people. And that's wonderful. We certainly need these windows into other cultures when we think about representation within multicultural picture books. But it also runs the risk of saying that that's all there is to being a member of the Asian community. And it starts to emphasize, you know, that single story about a group, not really thinking about all of the representations of Asianness that can take place within picture books. And so we think about who is represented in multicultural picture books, and we also think about how, using 9 categories that come from a research-grounded theory approach that were developed with Annie and Brenna. And I'll stop there for now.
Do you want to mention the search?
I'm happy to. So
I think the other crucial piece to add is that as a result, because of what we do, we our collection includes everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we do flag books that we find that when we can find reviews, critical reviews from the group represented that identifies what's problematic. But you will need to do your due diligence as you search through the titles in the collection, because we have everything we can find.
Mm-hmm. I love that particular example of beautiful life, your category of for Asian American books, you know, or that cross-reference. And we got a question about someone asking for books about East Asian and South Asian Americans that weren't, and people from the continents that weren't about food, you know. So for example, that's a problem people are running into, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can continue, Krista.
No, that's a great example. And so part of what we do in sharing out our data is we hope that it can illuminate other stories that can be told. I think the same thing is true when you look at books featuring African-American, African-descended characters. They tend to focus on stories of oppression, and they tend to focus those stories on slavery and civil rights. And so, you know, while it's important for children to learn about these historical oppressions, and it's important for children to think about what's eaten in a culture that may differ from their own, it runs the risk of miscommunicating to children that, for instance, oppression is over and done. That's a thing that happened long ago, and we don't have to think about that anymore. Or that that somehow, for the example of Beautiful Life, that somehow a culture is other and is not part of or cannot be part of mainstream American culture and society. And so we do our best to provide information to help raise awareness about these gaps in representation, and also make the books findable, right? And so with the search function, you can search for books featuring any of the races or cultures that we emphasize, as well as the hundreds of ethnicities that one might be interested in finding a book about, as well as our categories. So if Beautiful Life is a category that